We are going to be creating a web app, and we are going to be using the Django framework to do that. It is specifically designed to work with Python. And like all frameworks, there are conventions that we need to follow for the framework to function properly. So, this first chapter is pretty important because you will be setting up the development environment and you will be setting up the project. And we will be working with those conventions. So, it's very important that we follow step by step and that we do not deviate from the naming conventions because that will get us into trouble. um, the environment that we're going to work in requires that we use the command prompt to execute Python and Django commands. And then if we need to do anything to the code, we will be using VS Code for that. Because this is a web app, when we run our project, we will be viewing it in a browser. So we will be using the command prompt, VS Code, and a web browser. The procedures that we are going to cover in this chapter involve setting up a virtual environment and installing Django, and this is all done in the command prompt. We are going to create a project there, and that is also where we execute the command to run the app. We will run the app in the server, and the server is this little environment that allows us to use a local host, which is our computer, to serve up our app. We will be defining our models and registering our models in VS Code. We do the migrations over in the command console. So we're going to be swapping back and forth between VS Code and the command console. So you should probably go ahead and open up your command prompt because that is actually where we start. And then we'll kind of work through this. The chapter does start out with talking about project specifications. I think you guys can review those on your own. They're pretty straightforward. And we're going to get started with setting up our virtual environment and talking about how you do that. So for server-side applications, you have to work in some type of virtual environment. Sometimes there is a software application that you run that is separate. Quite often you end up working with the command prompt or PowerShell. We are going to be working with our command prompt to set up this virtual environment. First thing that I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to set up a directory for learning logs. And this you can just do in the File Explorer. I do recommend putting it in your 228, CIT 228 folder. I have one in my folder already, so I'm just going to go ahead and create one here. And I'm going to do it exactly the way the textbook author has set it up. So it's learning_log. Now, when you guys know enough to venture off on your own, You can name things however you want. When we are learning, we are going to follow what the textbook author has set up because there is a very specific structure of folders or directories that Django is looking for. Okay, so we are going to call it learning_log. That is the only directory that I'm going to set up using the File Explorer. Everything else I will be setting up using VS Code or the command prompt. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and move this into my 228 folder, even though I have one that is named similar, because this is where yours are going to be. So I'm going to rename this. And I'm just going to do a new one right in here so that I match you guys. All right, so now you and I should have the exact same thing. And our next step is going to be to go into the virtual environment. And so I'm going to open up the command prompt. And of course, this always goes on my other screen. Let me see if oh, there it is. I've keyed it in so many times, it's displayed here already, but all you have to do is key in command prompt and there it is. And then left click to launch. And so what you have to do is navigate to the learning log folder that you created. So if I do CD for change directory and I key in document, CD documents, that should take me to my documents folder. Okay. In my documents folder, that is where I have CIT 228. So I can do CD, CIT 228, and it brings me there. Now, if I'm in the wrong spot, if I want to go up a level, it's just CD space and 2 periods. Okay, so if I want to go up another level, CD space 2 periods, and I'm back to where I started. If you know the path, the full path to where you want to go, you can do CD space, and I can do documents / CIT 228 / learning_log. Okay, and then you can double check to make sure that everything worked. If you don't know what anything is named, then you can actually use the dir command. It stands for directory, and it will show you what is in the active folder. And the active folder is the last one that you see listed. So if I go up a couple levels and I do dir, you can see I have a lot more here. And anywhere that I see a dir, that is a directory. Okay, and then you can see I have files here. I have a lovely banana bran muffin recipe. And I've got a little Bob Marley tune. So you can see what I have in my document folder. It's probably a mess because I haven't deleted stuff that I don't need. But I'm going to go ahead and do the command to get back into our learning log folder. Oops. Now, if I need to retrieve a command, I can just use the up arrow. Now, what did I do wrong there? All right. I wasn't all the way back at the beginning. All right, so if your screen's a mess and you want to clear it out, CLS, clear screen, erases everything. So that is a C, L, and an S. So I am now in Learning Log. So what I need to do next, I need to create a virtual environment. And anytime I want to do anything in my app, I need to activate this virtual environment. So the command is Python space -m is my option, V environment for virtual environment, and then whatever I want to call the environment. Now the textbook author wants us to call it LL for learning log underscore ENV. And it does take a moment to come back. Okay, and then it looks like it does absolutely nothing. As long as you don't see an error, it worked. But it actually took a while because it did quite a few things. So if we can do the dir command and look in here what it did, but I think it may be more useful for you guys to see what is inside our learning log environment. So you can see it's got several directories, has a script directory. Inside the script directory is the activate command that we have to run every single time that we want to work on our app in the browser. Or if we've made adjustments to the models or anything that we need to update with the app, we have to activate this environment. So I'm going to close this. And right now, I am not in the virtual environment. I created it, but I am not in it. So to activate that environment, I am, and this is a little different than the book, I am going to do a change directory. I'm going to do learning log underscore environment. And then if I take a look, you can see that we have a scripts directory. So what I need to do is go into scripts. And now I can run that activate command. So all I have to do is key in the word activate. And then you can see at the beginning, I've got learning log underscore environment. Now, if for some reason I'm not going to work on this anymore, I can deactivate. So as long as I'm in my scripts directory, I just key in deactivate, and I'm no longer in my learning log virtual environment. But I want to be in there, so I'm going to activate it again. And then I'm going to go back up a couple levels so that I'm back at learning log. I don't really want to be in scripts. So I'm going to go back up 2 levels. And I'm going to clear my screen. So at this point, we have a learning environment, and it is active. This is where we have to install Django. So Django needs to be installed in every app you create. You will be installing it in the virtual environment. Okay, so I'm installing it right now in the learning log environment. And then later, when I create the little pizza app, I'm going to have to install it again in the pizza apps virtual environment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and install Django right here. And it's very important that you have that virtual environment active. So you should be able to see it before your prompt. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and give the command to install. And it does take a moment, but you should see it's starting to install everything. Okay, and then once it is done, it should say successfully installed. And then you know it worked. And we are going to keep this window open for our next segment.